Greetings, everybody. It is I, the Nomad, coming to you from the wastelands of the internet to bring you the news of the week. Hello, James. How's it going? Uh, how's it going, Mr. Barkley? I hope you're all doing well. It is another day. I've got lots of little tidbits of news, and we're actually going to start overseas today with this. Sadiq Khan wins third term as London mayor after trouncing Tory rival Susan Hall in a landslide, dashing rumors of a backlash over ULEZ, crime, and Gaza could cause a shock. Sadiq Khan is set for a third term as London mayor after trouncing his Tory rival, dashing rumors that he could be ousted by a backlash over ULEZ, crime, and Gaza. The Labour incumbent defeated Susan Hall by more than 11 percentage points, receiving 1,888,225 votes to her 811,518 votes. A Labour source hailed the win and insisted that Mr. Khan had done better than anyone could have expected and gained ground on the Conservatives right across London. They said the mayor has been re-elected by a far biggest direct mandate in the UK and the second biggest in Europe. Okay. Mr. Khan, all right, is a hardcore Marxist leftist. The city of London is a dystopian, authoritarian nightmare. There is huge political divisions. Everyone talks about the divisions in the United States. These divisions are not just in the United States. They're also in Europe. Now, I'm not going to defend or even really comment on Labour versus Tory versus all the other little groups that they have. Okay, because British politics, who the hell knows? All right, when it comes right down to it. But if you think that this authoritarian leftist is going to fix things in London, folks, you're foolish. You're about to see London begin to look like California, in that you will start to see people leaving and fleeing London. It's a matter of time. It's a matter of time. Just put it out there. All right. But I mean, this guy, he's an apologist for Hamas. And when you got an apologist for Hamas, we all know what's going to end up happening. Ukrainian men abroad voice anger over pressure to return home to fight. With Ukraine desperate for soldiers to reinforce its crumbling defenses against Russia's invasion, Ukrainian embassies have temporarily suspended consular services for fighting age men, placing new pressure on them to go home to fight. The suspension of citizen services such as passport renewals is intended as a preliminary step to a new mobilization law that will go into effect on May 18th. It will require all men ages 18 to 60 to update their personal information with a local draft office within 60 days. Martial law, in effect since the start of the Russian invasion in February of 2022, prohibits men ages 18 to 60 from leaving the country, but many men were afraid of being sent to the front have fled. Thousands of others were already living abroad. Now all of them face pressure under the new rules, which could restrict their movements. We all felt like the ground was being pulled out from under us, said 42-year-old Oleg Sanders, all right, from Kiev, now living in Austria. The Ukraine no longer wants to support us. Like other men interviewed for the article, Alexander, all right, agreed to speak on the condition that he only be identified by his first name because he feared being ostracized or facing other repercussions. Supporters of the mobilization law say men living outside the Ukraine, potentially numbering in the tens of thousands, are not sufficiently supporting their country in its time of greatest need. Okay. The the reality is horrific for these guys. Okay? And I don't want to minimize this. The battlefield environment has been turned into a meat grinder. What do I mean by that? I mean that you are being sent to the front again and again and again in combat operations where land isn't really being seized, strategic objectives aren't really being seized as much as small little gains or losses. And this is the intent of this war from Russia's perspective. They are fighting a meat grinder style war. This is all about how many of the enemy can I kill, all right, to make it so that they give up. And Russia has far more men. So even if they're losing on a 1-to-1 attrition level, Russia's going to win this. As long as they want this to continue the fight, they're going to continue with this style of combat. The only way for the Ukrainians to win is if they're able to kill dozens of Russians to every soldier they lose. Okay? That isn't possible right now. I can hear it now. No, man, you don't know what you're talking about. I've been reading it. The Russians are losing. They're losing all sorts of men and so forth. Right? And that's true. Russia is losing a lot of men. Russian losses are more than the Ukrainian losses from a manpower perspective. The problem, though, is it's not high enough. Now, why isn't it high enough? The reason it's not high enough is NATO weaponry, NATO's way of fighting, aka the United States' way of fighting methodology. Right? Yeah, basically feeding people into the grinder to keep the momentum, the money laundering going. Yeah, well, there's that's going on. That's a separate issue. The reason, though, that even with our weapons that they're struggling is because NATO's way of fighting, our way of fighting, is predicated on a number of different things in a unified concept. Okay, it's a total land, sea, air war, mobility warfare concept. What you're seeing is a throwback to World War One, all right, in trench style warfare. Sure, they're using modern drones, and we're hearing about the drones going back and forth, blah blah blah. All that's true. It is going into that, but you're not dealing in a mobile front. You're not dealing with mobile warfare. It's all static lines right now. And yes, our weapon systems are effective. Our weapon systems have done a land's job, but at the same time, it's not enough. And what's worse is the Ukrainians, the Ukrainian command are trained the same way that the Soviets were trained, the same way the Russians were trained, and they are trying to embark on utilizing these new weaponries with the tactics, all right, from the Russians. And what do I mean by that? All right, one of the things that you will see, and I think that you've all heard about, has been how the Ukrainians have hit these radar sites. Yeah, these radar sites deep into Russia, right? That have been causing them problems. These deep Russian radar sites that they've been able to hit. Okay, and I'm not denying that they hit these things. All right, I'm actually believing that they did. The problem is how does that affect the war front margin in any kind of material way? It doesn't. Hitting a hitting a radar site deep in Russia doesn't do shit. Now they've hit a few bombers, sure, right? So they got these Tu 88 bombers, and they hit them, and they hit this airfield. Okay, you blew up a few bombers. Good. Okay, that at least was a decent target. They're just going to move the bombers further out of the way. You had one strike. Okay, how effective was it? Is it continuous? Is it suppressing this? The most they get out of that is a temporary suspension of these forces being utilized. So the Russians move, realign, and hit you again. It doesn't prevent any of this. Taking control of the air is still a pipe dream. And right now, Russia has air superiority. They don't have air supremacy, but they have air superiority. Even with all these weapons. So if the Ukrainians are basically running into manpower shortages, and it's severe, folks. It's very severe. They were talking again about how, there's going to be this great offensive. Okay, it's getting toward June again. When's this offensive going to kick off? It's middle of May now. We're getting toward, well, it's beginning of May, but it's May 4th. So yeah, May the 4th be with you. Yeah, whatever. But I'm telling you, this is not going well for the Ukrainians. And the French have constantly said that we need to get involved in this, that we need to start putting troops on the ground. There is no way the United States is going to put troops on the ground. There is no way for the United States getting involved to put troops on the ground there. I'm just pointing it out. From Newsweek. Iran's axis of resistance claims a new front against Israel. Really? A militia based in the Arab highland nation of Bahrain has claimed its first ever attack on Israel, marking what would be a fifth front opened by forces of Iran-aligned Axis of Resistance coalition since the beginning of nearly 7-month war in the Gaza Strip. The group, known as Al-Ashtar Brigade and styling itself as the Islamic Resistance in Bahrain, issued a statement Thursday announcing that it had targeted the headquarters of an Israeli company, TruckNet Enterprises, said to be responsible for land transportation in the Zionist entity in the southern Israeli port of Eilat, also called al-Rasha. El Arashash. I'm not trying to butcher this intentionally. Last Saturday with a drone. The attack, according to the group, was conducted in support of the Palestinian cause and in support of our people resisting in Gaza. Oh, you are resisting in Gaza? Just making statements. This is the problem, folks. I'm just pointing out some things that people better start waking up to, because they do not understand who the enemy is. Meanwhile, we get this little tidbit from Zenhao News. An Israeli incursion into the southern city of Rafah in Gaza could lead to a slaughter and worsen the humanitarian catastrophe in the region, said the UN Humanitarian Office and Health Agency on Friday. Really? Is that because you can't provide missiles and human shields? Is that what is that why Miss Jens Larike, spokesman for the UN Office of Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs, is it because you can't provide enough human shields to stop the Israelis from actually going after the terrorists? So you can't sit up there and shield Hamas from what's coming? Is that what you're worried about? I am sick and tired of listening to words that people don't understand. Words like civilians. It could be a slaughter of civilians and an incredible blow to the humanitarian operation in the entire strip. What humanitarian operation? Support for Hamas is worried? Well, the World Health Organization is making contingency plans to ensure the health system is prepared and can continue to providing care. But these plans would only be a band-aid, said Peppercorn, representative in Hugh's office for the West Bank and Gaza, told a briefing in a video link. Did anybody ask this asshole why his hospitals have underground tunnels used by Hamas? Anybody? Meanwhile, after the NYPD on-campus arrest, Columbia faculty group calls for a no confidence vote of Shafiq. A faculty group at Columbia University on Thursday called for a vote of no confidence for Minouche Shafiq, the newly minted university president, whose tenure has been marred by campus protests and criticism of her use of the NYPD. The campus chapter of the American Association of University Professors, a professional faculty organization, said the shared decision of the administration, including the board of trustees and other officials, to call police to clear pro-Gaza student protests was made without consulting the university senate and that it violated procedures. Oh my! You guys gotta support the Hamas, the murdering terrorists. Don't you understand? Don't you understand? You gotta support the butcher. The choice of the Columbia administrators to ignore university statutes and customary practices honored by over 6 decades, to have our students violently arrested, and to impose a militarized lockdown on our campus has irrevocably undermined our trust in them. Sounds like I would get the names of every one of the university professors, and they would get a little letter saying that I don't care if you are a professor, we can fire you for cause even if you're tenured. And believe it or not, all you got to do is just walk on in there and find out who they've been doing donations to. They've been donating to terrorist groups, and I'm sure that these people have, because that's the kind of stupidity of these people. That's the stupidity of these idiots. You can get rid of them. Meanwhile, in the lair of the White House, young Democrats warn Biden he must quickly change course. Young Democrat voters are sounding the alarm and warning President Biden that his re-election bid could be in jeopardy if he doesn't change course on the issues that matter most to them, including the war in Gaza. While they have soured on Biden on a range of issues from cost of living to climate issues. The rash of protests at college campuses around the country, all right, has been the latest point of contention with the president. He will lose the election if he decides to roll the dice and assumes that Gaza isn't at the top of minds right now, said Elzie Joshua, the executive director of Gen Z for Change, which was once run under the name TikTok for Biden. Joshi added that the last 6 months has seen an increasing pace of concern about the president. The crisis in Gaza has been a tipping point for many young voters, and some polls have shown support dissolving for Biden. Last month, the Harvard Youth poll showed Biden's support from voters ages 18 to 29 had slipped from 60% in 2020 down to 45%. A CNN poll last weekend also revealed that Biden was 11 percentage points behind Trump in a head-to-head matchup among young voters. Really? Young voters are going to make the difference, are they? Really? Now, I will say something, all right, that shouldn't be misunderstood. It really does need to be talked about, and that is these are the supporters that they use to canvass neighborhoods. These are the people that they get to run around to get out the vote and drive Democrats to the voting booth and drive all these people around to stack ballots and so forth. This is one of the reasons why I despise early voting. And actually, I despise mail-in votes. Right? Absentee ballots are one thing. If you have a reason you're not in the area, so you request an absentee ballot, like, for example, soldiers who obviously can't be in their home district, that's one thing. But for people, for the vast majority of people, early voting does this. You have Democrat moles in every single one of these areas, all right, that report data to the DNC. And their purpose is to sit up there and say, okay, if we've got an area that looks weak, we can then start throwing these young people out there to enthuse and go door to door and make sure you get to get out the vote and all these other things. That's what they do. How many people do we need to get motivated to go in these areas? Right? It's illegal. Don't get me wrong. They're not supposed to be able to do this. But that's what they do. We know that they do this. It's been shown that they do it. They used to do it on election night. They used to sit there and go out and say, "Oh, we're not getting enough people coming to these polls in these certain districts," and they would send people out to those polls to whip the people out there to make sure the people are coming out to vote. Get on the phone, start harassing people. Get out to vote. Get on the phone doesn't work anymore. Why? Because people have cell phones, and it's harder to sit up there and track where people are when all they've got is a cell phone. Just pointing it out. But when you vote Democrat, this is what you get. When you vote for leftist policies, this is what you get. How robots are making our burgers and fries, all right, can lead to greater income inequality. On April 1st, more than 500,000 fast food workers in California got a raise, with the minimum wage across the sector being bumped up to $20 an hour. That same week, self-proclaimed world's first fully autonomous restaurant opened its doors for business in Pasadena. These two stories have received considerable media attention, typically presented as the fundamentally linked. Fast food franchise owners are struggling to stay afloat amid rising labor costs, leading many to consider automation as the only viable solution. But this simple depiction of cause and effect paints a picture of innovation, and inevitably that sells the public a fanciful myth. It isn't a fanciful myth. If you sit there and take a look at what's happening right now, the raise in the cost of fast food across California, all right, has had a huge, massive effect in the number of people being laid off directly from the fast food franchises. A couple of them have terminated completely out of California. Not a surprise. And even more, the startup companies like DoorDash and a few others are now reporting massive losses in sales. Because people aren't, they're like, okay, if I wanted to get my McDonald's is so expensive. I'm not going to sit there and on top of that pay you guys. And so a guy who was very happy, all right, as a DoorDash driver to say, hey, I get my $20 an hour now, is pulling in probably 45% less pay. Why? Because there's that few orders now. So he is actually getting paid less per week. And he's bitching. And I'm like, you voted for it. Why are you bitching, pal? And this is just the start of this. This is why I laugh about this part of the thing. Well, I study low wages industries in Los Angeles County, including the effects of the new technology on workers. My research shows how automation does not always lead to greater efficiency and cost cutting for businesses. As AI boosters would like the public and policymakers to believe, this kind of innovation also promises to further income inequality. Working people deserve to have their voices heard in determining where, how, and when, and whether AI and automation is used. I thought it wasn't working. This law just went into effect. You're trying to study low wages, and you're already writing an opinion piece. All right, you're already writing an opinion piece. Brian Justy. Brian here is already writing a hit piece. All right, because he's not a. This is not somebody who is studying this with a dispassionate, you know, objective view. He's already written a piece before his study can even really get off the ground because these rules just went into effect. He's already writing a hit piece. This is not going to work. This is not going to work. Oh, yeah? Ask the buggy whip drivers. Yeah, those Model Ts will never take off. Brian, you're a loser. Then we have this gem by Philip Bump, liar extraordinaire. Trump world has a new nonsensical theory of his document case innocence. On his way into a Manhattan courtroom where he is being tried on 34 felony charges, former President Donald Trump on Tuesday spoke to reporters about another of his indictments, the one obtained by special counsel Jack Smith in Florida, related to Trump's possession of documents with the classification markings. You probably saw last night that Jack Smith got caught with his hand in the cookie jar, Trump said. All right, it was released late last night, and it's a big story. The documents case is a hoax created by them for election interference purposes. And so that one looks like it's going asunder. A brilliant judge saw some facts, and I haven't read what was revealed yet. It just came out. But the document hoax is indeed a hoax. All right. What did they find, folks? For what you want to find, for what you know, is this: the GSA told the Trump administration that it had boxes of documents. Okay, boxes of documents on pallets that they had to come in and pick up. And as soon as they said, okay, well, we're going to go pick this stuff up, right? Right after they received these boxes, that's when all this reporting of they they were hiding stuff and they were doing boxes of stuff and everything. And the FBI came right on in behind them. And it was all coordinated. The evidence shows that it was all coordinated because they have the emails of these people. And Philip Bump comes in there and goes, well, these people aren't talking. They're saying, people asked where the security documents came from. And that isn't the story. That isn't the important part of the story. Oh, really? Oh, really, asshole? Hey, Philip, I'm going to tell you something right now because I had a security clearance. I've got one. I don't have access anymore. But I've got a security clearance. And I can tell you right now, you have a picture. I want people to take a look at this picture. Okay? What the hell is this? This isn't in a skiff. Oh, no, man. How do you know that? How can you tell us in a way? Good question. You know how I know this isn't a skiff? Because the guy in the center here doesn't have a badge on. You have to wear a badge. You have to when you got a security clearance and you're in a skiff, a secure facility. You have to wear your badge at all times. And it has to be prominently in front so that people can identify the badge with the face. It's one of the security practices, Phil. So you have classified documents being located in an unclassified area. Finding out how these supposed classified documents got out of a skiff is critically important. Because if you take classified information out of a skiff, there's only one way to actually do that, and that is if you are a courier. And you have a courier's card. And so when you take that classified, I know this because I did have this at one point. And the requirements of being a courier are when you take classified out, it never leaves your hands, basically. That you have control over it. You have to maintain control at all times. And if you fail to do so, you can be charged. If you go, for example, you're driving to a place and you have classified because you're a courier, and you stop at McDonald's and you lock you get out of your car and you lock your car and you run into McDonald's to get your burgers and everything, and you eat your lunch and you come back, you have violated the law. So documents that were unclassified that were in an unsecure facility, you have no idea how those documents got there or didn't. And you called, meaning the GSA, you called Trump to say, hey, pick these up. And then the FBI came back and said, you didn't report this document, you didn't report this document, you didn't report this document. He was hiding documents. See, he was trying to hide these documents. He was not honest with the people. He was not honest with the archive people. But the GSA, with the archive, was working with them, knew all about these documents, knew that they weren't even in his possession. And yet these are the same people who then say, oh, we were asking for these documents and he refused to give us the evidence. All right, but see, that's just a wild conspiracy theory. That's a wild conspiracy theory. The fact was he had the documents because they went in. Philip, you're a liar. You're a liar. At this point in time, it'll be interesting if the judge in the case, Eileen Cannon, doesn't say, okay, can you identify which ones of these documents came from the GSA? Because if you can't, okay, then how do you know, all right, and know that while these papers were inside of there, that they were not tampered with? There's a huge investigation, by the way, when there's a security breach that goes on with these normally. But there isn't one here. Normally there is a massive, and I mean a massive, effort to find out, okay, when these things were outside of the classified area, where could they have gone? Who has to have access to them? They should be interviewing this guy in the picture and everybody along the way to find out what was or could have happened, and to see whether or not in their facilities, if people had access that they didn't interview, who had access to any of these documents. Possible access if they were just set out and the people walked away and weren't paying attention. Just how wide open were these documents? For two reasons. One, how are you going to sit up there and prove that people didn't insert things into here? How are you going to prove that the people didn't put things in these boxes from another group? You've got to go through that whole thing. I would throw out all this evidence. Especially if the FBI cannot assert which ones were in these documents from these boxes. Because if they don't, then they can't identify what was classified or not that he supposedly took. But no, but Philip here, Philip Bob, that's just a conspiracy theory. That's just a conspiracy theory. See, Philip here come back with things like, none of those subsequent issues are dependent on how the material got to Largo, nor are the issues superseding indictment focused on the alleged effort to keep the government from obtaining surveillance footage. Sorry. But again, Kelly's story is false. It's not clear what document she's posting images from. She didn't link it in her social post. There's an excerpt in the interview with the person 10 released last week, but it doesn't include discussion of palettes. It does, however, make it obvious that who was being interviewed, all right, and a Trump employee in the post-presidential office who began working there in July of 2021. After he's no longer the president, okay, he began working in July after the man was no longer president. Hey, Arkin. But Philip, it's immaterial. It's immaterial. No, dude, it is material, and everybody knows it. How many people saw this story? Wisconsin elementary school teacher, 24, busted for making out with a fifth grader 3 months before a wedding. A 24-year-old Wisconsin elementary school teacher was arrested Wednesday for allegedly making out with her fifth grade student less than 3 months before her wedding. Madison Bergman's alleged abuse of an 11-year-old boy came to light when the student's mother overheard her son talking to the teacher on the phone. The degeneracy by these teachers in these classrooms and these kind of pedos, because this is obviously a pedophilic type of environment, this woman shouldn't ever see the light of day again. Should never see the light of day again. An 11-year-old boy. Teacher was making out with an 11-year-old boy in her classroom, or in her class. That's in her class, her student. How does this happen? Seriously. How does this happen? Time after time after time, you're finding this crap going on. And don't get me wrong, this is just a story about a woman making out with a boy. Going the other way happens too, where an older man teacher, right, he starts making out with a freaking 11-year-old girls. That happens too. Just shut down the schools. It's all propaganda. They don't learn anything anyway. There's a lot of truth to that. Truthfully, there is a lot of truth to that. Cop handcuffed man, 73, hit an officer forcibly with a thrown cheeseburger. Handcuffed. The guy's handcuffed. All right, 73-year-old man somehow was able to forcibly throw a cheeseburger at a cop, leading to the suspect's arrest on a felony battery charge. Police responded Wednesday night to a Wawa convenience store in Fort Pierce, Florida. Surprise. All right, in reference to a subject being present who was previously trespassed. I'm not sure who was previously trespassed. I'm not sure how that works. Since the trespass was still active, police arrested Joseph Delancey and placed him in handcuffs. During the detainment of Joseph, he was holding half a cheeseburger, an officer reported. After being provided demands to drop the burger, he refused to do so, according to the police report. After the handcuffs were placed on him, Joseph forcibly flung the burger into my right thigh. Okay, now I know what people are thinking. They're thinking that this is absolutely ridiculous. The charge is absolutely nonsensical. Um, and if you're a DA and you take this case forward, you're an idiot. Now, this guy has a long track record. Includes convictions for attempted murder, fraud, and aggravated battery with a deadly weapon. Okay, all right. And he was arrested in 2022 for allegedly attempting to strike a cop with a metal pole. All right, so this guy obviously he went to jail for a long time. All right, but and I know people are like, this cop is just being ridiculous, and that might be true. All right, because I don't know the situation. All right, we weren't there. They don't discuss the situation, but I do know how organizations work. Okay, now let's say that this burger with all the condiments on it got smeared on this guy's pants, on the officer's pants. I understand people are like, well, it doesn't mean it's battery. Look, just hear me out. So the condiments and everything got on this guy's pants, and he now has to take his uniform to get dry cleaned. Okay, it's very possible that this cop wants the city to say, hey, this was in the line of duty. You guys should pay for the dry cleaning. You know, my uniform to be dry cleaned. It's very possible the city says, well, there's no proof that it was in the line of duty. This establishes proof that it was in the line of duty to have his uniform cleaned. All right? That's the kind of shit that goes on. So I can see that them guys doing this. But let's be honest, unless you have a nonsensical DA attorney, all right, you're not going to charge this guy with a felony. That's just, you can get him on trespassing all you want, but I'm still wondering how this guy got out on murder charges, but we don't know how long he spent in jail. Perhaps he served his time. All right. Obviously, there was some kind of altercation where he was trespassing in the Wawa store. Most likely, the guy, I'll be honest, he looks like an itinerant, right? He looks like he's homeless. He was probably in the store eating a burger, all right? And people were saying, are you going to pay for that burger? And he said no, and he just continued eating the burger. That's what I suspect happened because he's homeless. From the Yonhap News, which is Korean news, U.S. announces extension of graphite use for EV, electric vehicle tax credits through 2026. The U.S. government has announced a decision on Friday to extend tax credits for electric vehicles, all right, containing Chinese graphite until the end of 2026, an extension that followed a demand from electric vehicle manufacturers. On the Federal Register, the Treasury Department posted the final rules on the clean energy vehicle provisions of the Inflation Reduction Act that included a temporary exemption of graphite from the rules on the use of minerals from foreign entities of concern, China, right, including from China, Russia, North Korea, and Iran. The IRA provides for up to $7,500 in tax credits to buyers of electric vehicles that met sourcing requirements and were assembled in North America. Autom- Automakers without tax benefits would find it difficult to compete against the beneficiaries of the credits. The strict FEOC rules appear to be aimed at reshaping the EV supply chains away from China amid an intensifying Sino-US rivalry. You mean when we're getting ready to sit up there to have a war with China over Taiwan? Is that what you're trying to say? So basically, you can still buy electric vehicles that use carbon fiber. All right, that was actually produced in China. Just letting you know. All right, just letting you know. Back to the immigration front. UK dismisses Irish demand to return migrants crossing from Northern Ireland, all right, pointing out that France doesn't accept channel arrivals back with a showdown of talks. The UK is on a collision course with Ireland today after ministers flatly rejected Dublin's demands to take back asylum seekers crossing from Northern Ireland. The Republic has voiced alarm that large numbers are taking advantage of the invisible border on the island to avoid being deported back to Rwanda. Because Rwanda has said, we'll take all the migrants you don't want. And so Britain has begun the send them to Rwanda movement. And I know people are like, they're looking at a map. Where the hell's Rwanda? I'm looking on this map on Google Maps, and I don't see a Rwanda. Zimbabwe. Taoiseach Simon Harris has vowed to pass new laws to facilitate the returns of migrants after the country's courts declared that the UK cannot be classed as safe due to the pact with the African state. However, a spokesman for Rishi Sunak today suggested the Prime Minister would ignore any new law, saying if Ireland was to pass legislation, it is up to the UK government, all right, to decide who it does and does not accept into the country. We are not going to start accepting returns from the EU, just as France doesn't accept returns from the UK. Yes, indeedy. And yeah, I did notice that, so I apologize. But this is the story, folks, from the Daily Mail, just so you can see. Right. On to the next story. More immigration news. Iowa will not back down after Biden administration threatens to sue if the state arrests and deports migrants. Illegal aliens. The Biden administration warned Republican Governor Kim Reynolds on Friday that legal action will be taken if it enforces a new law that allows authorities to arrest migrants who were previously denied entry or deported from the United States, as she and the state attorney general vow they will not back down. In a letter to the Hawkeye State governor, a Justice Department official called the measure unconstitutional and gave the state a May 7th deadline to suspend enforcement of Senate File 2340, which Reynolds signed into law earlier this month. SF 2340 is preempted by federal law and violates the United States Constitution. Principal Deputy Assistant Attorney General Brian Boynton, wrote, according to the Des Moines Register. The DOJ official argued that the law effectively creates a separate state immigration scheme which intrudes into the field that is occupied by the federal government and is preempted. Boynton further claimed the law violates the Immigration and Nationality Act and conflicts with various provisions of federal law permitting non-citizens to seek protection from removal to avoid persecution and torture. Folks, this is they just don't get it yet. This is why the Biden administration is in trouble. All right, I can tell you right now, all the other bullshit, okay, that the Biden administration has done to the country with the inflation and everything else. Believe it or not, if it was just that, Biden would be ready to be reelected. With the economy and the toilet, but the way the media has been lying about the economy being okay and doing well and constantly lying to the people would sit up there and just grumble a bit, but they would sit up there and reelect that nut job in the White House. The problem the people are seeing, their number one issue, more than any other issue, their number one issue is this immigration stunt, these immigration problems, because it is overwhelming the DNC cloistered areas, and people are now getting upset with it. People in California, people in Massachusetts, people in New York City, people in Chicago and Illinois who are hardcore Democrats are looking at this shit saying, wait a minute here, what the hell is going on? And all it took was one governor saying, I'm tired of these illegals being in my state. I'm shipping you to somewhere else. And we're going to send you to the places that came up and said, oh, we're welcoming. We take in these illegal aliens. We will want them here. They are a blessing to us. Be blessed, Chicago. Be blessed, Boston. Be blessed, New York City. Be blessed, San Francisco and Oakland. Be blessed, blessed with more migrants. This is the number one issue that people are upset about. If it wasn't for this, Trump wouldn't be doing nearly as well. I guarantee you. But this immigration shit has gotten out of control and people are tired of it. Okay. I'm going to do a few entertainment stories. Entertainment stories. And the first one is something that I hate doing. But I'm going to do it anyway. I told you so. Okay. Britney Spears sparks mental health crisis concerns at Chateau Marmont in LA as the barefoot star is pictured wrapped in a blanket and attended to by emergency services in a scene reminiscent of her 2008 breakdown. She was seen in her underwear and clutching a pillow. A man wheeled a stretcher with the star's belongings on it, claimed Spears and felon ex Paul Richard Soles got into a huge fight. She has abrasions on her knees, appeared to be topless, and looked disheveled as she held a pillow to her chest with security surrounding her and the felon ex Paul Richard Soles. It has been claimed that the pair got into a huge fight and that a woman matching Britney's description was harassing and threatening hotel employees and guests. A man was seen wheeling a stretcher with the star's belongings on it. All right, I told you so. All these people who jumped up and down say, free Britney, free Britney. Oh, she's a treacherous. Oh, she's fine. She's fine. And her dad was trying to say, no, she's not. She's not stable. Oh, she's fine. He's just trying to live off of her. He's just trying to steal her money. He's just trying to help himself. He said it. Other people now, there's others. I could do another story where you get other people saying, yeah, maybe we were wrong to back this. Okay. This woman has a lot of mental issues and she's not competent to take care of herself. I hate to say that. I hate to say I told you so. But from everything as I was reading these stories about them going after her father and everything else, right? Everything that they were trying to blow out of proportion seemed reasonable considering her inability to stay sane. It was obvious the woman was having massive issues still. Oh, she had gotten better because her father was limiting the people around her who were truly using her as a money sink for themselves, who were abusing her emotionally and basically taking advantage of her in any shape or form. And her father is preventing those freaking grifters from actually doing any harm. And he may not have been perfect at it, and he may have made some mistakes, but it's nothing like this woman. I warned people. I told you so. Hopefully, a judge sits up there and puts her back under conservatorship. I really think that she needs it. She needs to have people around her that truly love her, not people that say they love her to her face and basically are just using her as a money pit. Moving on. One of Star Trek's best new characters reclaimed a problematic trope. A Star Trek fan invented the Mary Sue, and if any Discovery character fits the original, it's not Michael Burnham, but Sylvia Tilly. That's great. There's a popular term in media criticism that can be traced its origins to the early days of Star Trek fandom. It's almost ironic that the lead protagonist in Star Trek Discovery is often unfairly described with this label. No! Stop right there. Michael Burnham is the bestest ever who does everything. All right? She's the center of everything. She betrays the Federation, all right? Is a criminal in the Federation and is still supposedly the hero. She starts a war that kills millions of Federation citizens, all right? And she's the hero. And she's tough and she's powerful and she can kick ass and she can take names. Oh, but Tilly's worse. Tilly, the awkward teen who just keeps coming up with stupid things. This is the power of math, folks. All right. Oh God. We're trying to bring back this show any way possible. We've got to save Michael Burnham's character. So we'll claim that Tilly's more of a Mary Sue than Burnham is. Joshua Patton. Yeah, dude. No. I hate to tell you, dude. All right. Tilly is nowhere close to being as much of a Mary Sue as Burnham is. In a story from the Jensen Files, Las Vegas man who was spotted eating the face of a victim he allegedly murdered told police that he was tweaking, hearing voices, and fought with a shapeshifter before killing through the help of a higher power, according to a gruesome police report. Colin Ichiro Chex, or I'm not sure how to pronounce that name. All right, 29 has been charged with the April 28th murder of Kenneth Brown. Police charged that he knocked Brown to the ground, where his head was forcibly struck the concrete near Las Vegas Boulevard. A witness who called 911 to report the violent confrontation said that the man was on top of the victim, eating the face of the male on the ground. When officers arrived at the scene, they spotted him kneeling on the ground next to Brown's head, seen at the right. Chex had blood on his face and his hands, and biological matter in his mouth, hair, and on his clothing. Brown said Brown, cops say, had an injury to the back of the head and was also missing his left eye and left ear. Yeah. Now, I've heard from Jensen since the story was posted, so I know this isn't Jensen. Just, you know. Let's get into the wildlife story, shall we? Just a few wildlife stories today. Wyoming goes wild in a mad dash for brown gold. Jackson, Wyoming, as the sun begins to rise of the Gros Ventre mountain range. Highlights from a line of 125 vehicles snake through the hills into the Bridger Teton National Forest. Hundreds of people have come to hike the sagebrush dotted hills in search of fallen elk antlers. In a scene similar to a Black Friday rush, fans are waiting for the start of the first day of antler collection season. I never knew there was such a thing as antler collection season in Jackson. When the gates open, they'll begin their frenzied pursuit, trying to beat the competition to pick up the largest sheds. Okay? Everybody runs to the base of the hill, and then everyone is bending over darn near pukey because no one is in shape and no one's ready for the craziness, said Dylan Heide, 25, a real estate agent in Casper, Wyoming. He makes the trip to Jackson with his friends annually. This year, his wife, father, and grandfather all participated. Animals such as elk, deer, and moose naturally shed their antlers every winter, leaving the bony treasures scattered along the slopes and valleys where they roam. You pick them up and you can hardly believe that the thing was on an animal's head for months on end, and that they grew to that in one season. Kind of like the way we grow fingernails, said Todd Stiles, district ranger for the Jackson district of Bridger Teton National Forest. Shed hunting, the practice of picking up these discarded antlers, peaks in forests surrounding Jackson, home of the National Elk Refuge. An average of 7,500 elk winter on the 24,700 acre refuge, according to the National Elk Refuge Project leader, Frank Durbin. Antler collection is illegal on the refuge or in the national parks year round and prohibited on public lands in Wyoming west of the Continental Divide from December until May to protect the wintering animals from the stress of human presence, according to Stiles. But as the snow melts, elk leave the refuge, following a wave of uncovered grass and dropping their antlers as they go. This makes the National Forest land abutting the elk refuge ideal shed hunting territory. The result is a highly competitive morning in Jackson. Look, who cares? What are you going to do with these things? Do you get thousands of dollars for each one of these things? Right? I mean, are they sellable? It's, I'm just wondering. I'm just curious. I mean, how many antlers are you going to get? Just wondering. Warning, as first American dolphin diagnosed with highly pathogenic bird flu. Florida dolphin, why is it always Florida? All right, was diagnosed and discovered with a highly pathogenic bird flu, according to a study. This dolphin was the first cetacean, all right, to ever be recorded with the avian influenza virus, known as HPAIV, all right, in North America. This discovery, which was made by at the University of Florida researchers, is detailed in a paper in the online Journal of Communications Biology. The study examined the first U.S. finding of HPAIV in a cetacean from when it was first detected by the marine rescue teams to the diagnosis of the virus and samples found in a post-mortem exam. So the dolphin unfortunately died. Scientists fear that the spread of bird flu could be catastrophic. This dolphin was first found in distress in March of 2022 after it became stuck in the Dixie County Canal. Attempts were made to rescue the animal, but it died shortly after a rescue team arrived. It was packed in ice and transported to the University of Florida. So the bird flu killing dolphins now. Meanwhile, two more stories, folks. Just two more stories. In a first, an orangutan was seen treating his wound with a medicinal plant. After an orangutan hurt his face, scientists observed him chewing a plant known to relieve pain and applying a paste made from the leaves to the injury. An orangutan named Rackus hit a rough patch in the summer of 2022. Researchers heard a fight between male orangutans in the treetops of the rainforest of Sumatra, Indonesia. Basically, where orangutans now live. That's pretty much the only place where they can be found in the wild. A day later, they spotted Rackus sporting a pink wound below his right eyelid. All right. A chunk of flesh about the size and shape of a puzzle piece was missing when Rackus, who is most likely in his 30s, belted out a long call. Researchers noticed another wound inside of his mouth. Over the next several days, researchers followed Rackus at a distance and saw something so surprising that they wound up reporting it in great detail in this journal Scientific Reports. But this was in 2022, right? Isn't that when this was? Yeah, we need to get rid of this thing. We'll have to wait for this stupid thing to finish. Here's Rackus right here chewing on the leaves. According to their study published Thursday, Rackus was observed to repeatedly chewing on leaves of a particular Linna plant over several days. The climbing vine is not a typical food for orangutans, but is known to humans as a pain reliever. On at least one occasion, Rackus made a paste from the chewed leaves and applied it to his face. It's the first time an animal has been seen applying medicine to a skin wound. It's the first documentation of external self-medication, the application of leaves, I would argue, as a poultice, like humans do to treat wounds and pain, said Michael Hoffman, an associate professor at the Wildlife Research Center at Kyoto University in Japan, who was not involved in the new study. Rackus's wound never showed signs of becoming infected, and it closed up in a week. The discovery is new evidence that orangutans are able to identify and use pain-relieving plants. A growing body of research suggests other animal species also self-medicate with varying levels of sophistication. The researchers behind the study think that the great ape's ability to identify medicines and treat wounds could be traced back to a shared ancestor with humans. Yeah, really? Well, there you can really see the wound on the poor animal, right? At least at the beginning of it. So it's it's quite interesting, right? It's interesting to notice, these things. Let me go back just a little bit here. You can see a better picture of how big that wound is on his eye. So it's kind of cool. I mean, there are apes that are at least to some degree have some kind of semi intelligence. All right. And then we also know that orangutans have the ability to learn. The only thing you got to worry about is when you start hearing apes don't kill apes. You start hearing that being around you, you might think there might be a problem. Because they are organizing, folks. Fearless Monkeys, all right, gang, tear down anti-monkey posters in a terrifying town uprising. Well, Planet of the Apes, folks. The orangutans ever start to use these guys? A group of bold monkeys have torn down staggering 30 posters protesting ape tourism in the tourist hotspot of Lopburi, Thailand, in a bizarre apparent act of defiance. A gang of monkeys have taken action after posters appeared protesting their presence in a tourist hotspot. Lopburi, Thailand is known for its rich history, but it has another draw for visitors. In this city, monkeys roam free in the streets, rubbing shoulders with the town's inhabitants. Right? This is no peaceful coexistence, however. The primates' attacks are increasingly common, and tension between man and monkey is at an all-time high. It's somewhat to see the primates gone for good. You can see them going after things. One group even put up signs protesting against monkeys living there on April 21st, but an apparent counter protest was launched at about 6 p.m. the next day, when the primate population would typically in turn in for the night. However, this evening, an army of the animals took to the streets and tore down, and destroyed more than 30 of the posters. Local outlet Tarath reported the fed-up locals put the signs up to show their dissatisfaction with the Thai department's national parks and monkey tourism. The banners called on officials to catch the monkeys and release them back in the wild. Apes won't kill apes. Apes must not kill apes. Apes don't kill apes. But humans are on the menu. All right, folks. That's all I've got for the stories today. I hope you enjoyed the show. Thanks for coming out, everybody. Hope you all have a good day, and I'll talk to y'all later. Bye bye, everybody.